this lecture, we're going to look specifically at connective tissue proper to begin with. So remember, we had three major categories of connective tissue that we had mentioned in the previous lecture, and so the first one we're covering is connective tissue proper. Now this looks a little intimidating because there's a lot of stuff on here, but we have two major things that we're looking at. We're going to look at all the cells that are associated with connective tissue proper. Then we're going to also look at the fibers produced by those cells that are going to help to create the matrix. Now within connective tissue proper, we're still going to talk about loose connective tissue and dense connective tissue, but first we're going to look at what is going to be the same in both of those different types of connective tissue. So in connective tissue proper, the most abundant cell that is always present in these connective tissues are going to be fibroblasts. So these are the main cells associated with connective tissue proper. And look at their names, fibro, fibers. What does blast mean as a root word? Well, blast means immature cell. So these are immature cells that are creating fibers. These are the ones that are actively making the matrix. Now, if you look at this figure over here, this is not something that I would expect you to label on a test or anything, but it is giving a good representation of these different types of cells that we have in here, plus these different fibers. So as you can see here, this is a fibroblast here. We know this fibroblast is going to be active in creating the different fibers we have. And so notice the fibers. We have collagen, reticular, and elastic fibers. So these fibers are really long fibers that we see. So these yellowish ones, those are some collagen fibers. We have these thin elastic fibers that are running through there. And then we also have our reticular fibers that are going to be up there. All of those, again, are being created by that fibroblast, that immature cell that is always present, and it creates the matrix. Fibroblasts, when they mature, become fibrocytes. When you see cyte as a root word, that just means cell. So this is our fiber cell. The fibrocytes are the second most abundant cell you will have in connective tissue proper. They are the matured form, and they are not there to create new fibers and matrix, but they are there to help maintain the connective tissue that's going to be in there. So the fibroblasts actually create the fibers, and then the fibrocytes are going to be maintaining them. Adipocytes are going to be fat cells, like adipose tissue that we talked about. So these are these yellow guys right here. So you're going to have a number of these little fat cells that are going to be in connective tissue proper. Again, they're storing fats like triglycerides. They can be used for energy later. Our next type of cell is a mesenchymal cell. Mesenchymal cell is another name for a stem cell. So these stem cells are going to become active when there's an injury and you need to do repairs. And the mesenchymal cells, when there is an injury, are going to divide and differentiate into fibroblasts. So then you will create new fibroblasts from those mesenchymal cells. Melanocytes, that's going to be another cell. Again, cyte over here, melano, that's a cell that secretes melanin, which is a dark pigment, like a brownish pigment. Now, these last four cells that we have here, macrophages, mast cells, lymphocytes, microphages, all four of those, I'm not going to ask you to distinguish them from each other. So for right now, what you need to know is that they are white blood cells. And generally, they're migratory, which means they are not fixed and stuck into one place within the tissue. They basically are there to wander around and check for any kind of microorganisms that may have gotten past your defenses and then fight against them or call your immunity to actually fight against them. So those are all just collectively white blood cells. Now, the different fibers that we have associated with the connective tissue proper is going to start with collagen. Collagen is our most common fiber that you will see throughout the connective tissue proper. And again, it's these long, ropey, yellowy orange kind of things in the figure over here. They're going to be very strong. They're going to provide strength to our tissue, and they're made up of rope-like protein. So it's made up of these fibrous subunits that are all wound together like a rope. So it's actually wound together and intertwined with each other, and that makes the tissue very strong. The reticular fibers are going to be made of those same fiber subunits that the collagen was going to be made of, except they're not going to be woven into this rope-like structure. They're going to be branching and thinner throughout the actual connective tissue proper, and they are going to be used to help to stabilize those structures within the organs. So they're kind of holding everything in place. And then you have our elastic fibers. Elastic fibers are made up of a different subunit for the protein. They're made of an elastin protein. That elastin protein is elastic. It stretches. So like a rubber band, you can stretch it and pull it apart, but what makes it elastic is that it rebounds and recoils back into place. So the elastic fibers made by that fibroblast allow us to give resistance and rebound to our connective tissue. So like when you push on your face and it goes in a little bit, and then when you remove your finger, that springs back into place, that's because your elastic fibers allowed it to do that. So all three of those fibers that we see there are made by those fibroblasts, which are the main cells of connective tissue proper. Now, looking specifically within connective tissue proper, our first group within there we're going to look at is loose connective tissue. Loose connective tissue is still going to have our fibroblasts. It has our fibrocytes. It creates those same fibers that we were looking at before. But loose connective tissue tends to be a packing material that's making up the bulk of organs and things that are within our connective tissue. Now remember, connective tissue is one of our most abundant tissues because it's filler and packing that you're going to have within most of the organs. Within our loose connective tissue, we have three types of loose connective tissue. So we have our areolar tissue, our adipose tissue, and our reticular tissue. So our areolar tissue here is the least specialized type of connective tissue. It's very elastic and it doesn't distort very well, and it's basically that kind of packing material that I talked about. The ground substance for this areolar tissue is going to be kind of viscous, so it's more viscous than water, so it's kind of a gel-like substance in there. And it's most oftentimes used to separate things, like separating the skin from the muscle. This is if you were to like go and pinch your skin and pull up that epithelial tissue, the part underneath it that's not epithelial tissue that comes up with it, that's going to be areolar tissue. It's highly vascularized generally, and it's going to have its own blood supply going to it, and oftentimes is used as that connection to the epithelial cells that don't actually have their own blood supply, because those epithelial tissues are avascular. Adipose tissue is our next group. With that adipose tissue, this is going to be packed with adipocytes. Now, if you look up here at the areolar tissue, it looks kind of airy and open. There are some cells, there are some fibers, it looks like some open spaces. Adipose tissue is basically big blobs of fat cells. Those big blobs of fat cells are going to be there to insulate the different tissue around. It's going to help to absorb any kind of shocks, and it is going to be there to help protect the cells that are around it. So it fills space, but it's also a protective layer around other organs. And it's used for storage of energy. Reticular tissue is our last type of loose connective tissue. The reticular tissue is going to hold specialized cells within it. So notice it is much more busy in here than you see all these reticular fibers that are running through there, and then you have all these little cells that are going to be surrounding it as well. This is going to provide a framework for the organ on the interior. So it's going to provide space for things to hold onto within the liver itself, so everything's in the correct spot within it. And it's going to have very specialized cells depending on which organ it's in. So if it's like in the liver, then you have very special liver or hepatic cells that are going to be housing it with the reticular cells in there. If this was a pancreas, it's going to have pancreatic cells. So the specialized cells associated with it are particular to that particular organ. So all three of these you need to know are loose connective tissues, and you need to know the major type of cell associated with it and where you're basically going to find it in function. Still in connective tissue proper, now we're going to look at dense connective tissue, which you can tell by the name. Dense connective tissue is going to be much more compacted than we had with our loose connective tissues. The dense connective tissue is going to have a whole lot of collagen in it. So you're going to have less reticular and less elastic, but more collagen based. So within this dense connective tissue, we're going to have three different categories. So we have dense regular connective tissue, dense irregular connective tissue, and then elastic. So the dense regular and dense irregular, they're going to have all those collagen fibers, but basically the main difference is how those fibers are going to be lined up. So in dense regular connective tissue, the collagen fibers are almost running parallel to each other. So they create this nice kind of linear structure. It is a little wavy in there, but you will have the fibroblasts in there and then the collagen fibers, which are going to be nicely, neatly organized and all running parallel. Things like tendons and ligaments are going to be dense, regular connective tissue. Tendons are going to be connective tissue that's attaching muscle to bone. So where the muscle is attached to the bone that it's going to pull on, the end of it is going to be a tendon. Ligaments are similar, except ligaments are going to attach bone to bone. There are also other dense connective tissues called aponeuroses. Aponeuroses are going to be basically like tendons, but instead of like a coil at the end, it's a flat sheet where the muscle is going to attach to a bone. But all those are dense, regular connective tissues. Dense, irregular connective tissues, you're going to find, particularly right here, you can see in the deep dermis. So within your skin layer down here is going to have the dense, irregular connective tissue. It's going to have no real pattern to the collagen that's going to be in here, and you're going to find it oftentimes in capsules that are surrounding organs. And oftentimes the capsules are going to be part of the outer covering of the organ itself, where the functional cells are going to be found in the center of the organ, but then they're surrounded by this capsule and then epithelial tissue. This in particular is going to provide strength to resist forces and prevents overexpansion of organs. So your things like your stomach and your urinary bladder have the ability to collapse, but they are also able to distend outward when they're full. The connective tissue, that's the dense irregular connective tissue, is going to hold that in place so it doesn't start invading places where it's not supposed to. And then we have elastic tissue. Elastic tissue is going to have a lot of elastic fibers that we talked about being made by those fibroblasts. Elastic tissues are going to stabilize things and cushion shocks that are going to happen. And it's going to allow a little bit of movement between certain things. So like what you can see here, here's an elastic ligament in the vertebra within your backbone here. So one vertebra here, another, and it's going to hold them in place and allow them to move a little bit, but it's going to limit that movement, but it's also there to help support it and keep it in the right spot. I mentioned early in the chapter that connective tissue really provides that internal structure for the body. The different layers of connective tissue that we have surround and support the different organs of your body, and then it also connects them to the rest of the body. So we need these layers to all work together because they're providing strength and stability, they're helping us maintain the position of our organs within our body cavities, and then it's also going to be providing a route for blood vessels and nerves to grow through so that you can have that continuous blood supply and nervous system supply. So what we're looking specifically at now is the fascia. And fascia is kind of a collective term for all that connective tissue proper that we've been talking about and how it's going to be making connections between those organs and from the body wall to those organs as well. We have superficial fascia, we will have deep fascia, and we'll have subserous fascia as well. So superficial fascia, of course, is going to be closer to the top of the skin area. That's going to have areolar tissue and adipose tissue. So the superficial fascia is also oftentimes just referred to as our subcutaneous layer or our hypodermis related to our integumentary system or our skin. So when you look at that, that's this whole layer of fat in here. So again, it's going to be adipose tissue as well as that loose connective tissue, which is the areolar tissue that's making up this layer of fascia. The deep layer of fascia, you can kind of see here's one line right here, here's the white line here, another white line, and another white line. So those white lines are going to be separating. First, we have, of course, that subcutaneous layer, and then these are muscular layers that are going to be there, and here's bone that the muscle is going to be around. So the deep fascia is going to be bound to capsules and tendons. So this is going to cause a different separation that you're going to have between different layers. So with the deep fascia, you end up having fibers organized kind of like plywood, where you have one layer of it and then you'll have another layer of it, but the fibers are running in a different direction than the previous layer. So they're kind of laying on top of each other, and that arrangement that they have where they're going to be in different directions means that they're able to resist forces that are coming from different directions of the body. If they all laid in the same manner, if you pulled a certain way, you might be able to separate all of that as long as that force pulling away matched up with how they were lined up. But when they're lined up in different ways and different orientations, you have a better resistance to different types of forces. You're going to have these around capsules around your organs that are going to help to keep them safe, and they're going to bind them to different areas within the cavities that they're being held in. So when you have the thoracic cavity or the abdominal pelvic cavity, it's going to hold the organs in place in that right spot, so they're not just kind of floating around within the cavities. The subserous fascia, it's a layer of areolar tissue, and it lies between that deep fascia that we just described and then the serous membranes that are going to be lining the body cavities that we learned in a previous chapter. So all of these are going to basically fit together and work together to create what we refer to as fascia in general, which is creating that framework. Now we have this little image down here at the bottom as well that I like, because it's showing you how not only do you have those white layers where you're going to have the fascia, but it shows you the connections in between. So it's not just these single layers that are slicing through. You have that layer here, you have another layer up here, and a layer down here, but there are fibers that are going across the membranes too that are going to be attaching them to each other. So they all are working cohesively, because it's not just a random sheet that's separating these two layers of adipose tissue, but then you have the branching between them as well that's going to connect one fascial layer to the other fascia.